So, everyone ready? We're calling this meeting to order. This is the Morgantown City Council regular meeting. We're in Mon County Commission Chambers, 243 High Street. It's Tuesday, March 21st, 2023, and it's a little bit past 7 p.m. We're calling the meeting to order and asking the clerk if she'd please call the roll.
Yes. Joe Buganim. Bill Kolecki.
Here.
Ixia Vega.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Trumbull.
Here.
Dave Harshbarger.
Here.
Brian Butcher.
Here.
Mayor Celine.
Here. We're going to stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have one set of minutes to look at. It's March 7th, 2023, regular meeting minutes. Is there anyone who has reviewed them and is willing to make a motion?
Move to approve?
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Agree by acclamation? Yes. And now we have correspondence. We're going to start off with the, get the little stack out here. We're going to start out with the National Kidney Month proclamation. And let's see. Here's the list. So we have Reynaldo Ray Galindo, Jesse Danforth, Kelly Zomack, and a board member of the National Kidney Foundation. Are you all in attendance? Yes? Okay. So we're going to come up and we're going to read the proclamations and present them to you. And then if one or more of you want to have a chance to say a few words, you can. We appreciate you all coming. Thank you. So, whereas there are an estimated 37 million adults in the U.S. with kidney disease, and 1 in 10 adults are at risk for kidney disease. Whereas most people are unaware that the risk factors for kidney disease include diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity, and family history. Diabetes being a leading cause for kidney disease, and whereas African Americans, Hispanic, and Latinos are at greater risk for developing kidney disease, therefore it is critical that attention be brought to this often overlooked health crisis. The month of March is National Kidney Month, and March 9th, 2023 is World Kidney Day. Whereas the National Kidney Foundation is calling on everyone to participate in raising awareness of kidney disease in 1 in 3 adults in the U.S. who are at risk. They are asking for help in changing the numbers. Now therefore I, Jenny Celine, the Mayor of the City of Morgantown, West Virginia, on behalf of City Council, in recognition of this important health observance, do hereby recognize March 2023 to be National Kidney Month.
Yeah.
And we'd like to present one of these to each of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then we have one, I understand, for the national organization.
Yes, and I'll get one to them as well.
And maybe one other that you can put to good use.
We can do that. Thank you.
All right. So, congratulations to all of you.
Thank
And
you.
if you would each like to have a turn with the microphone, you're welcome to say a few words, or you're welcome to rest on your laurels. So appreciate all the work that you do on behalf of fighting kidney disease.
Thank you.
As individuals and as parts of organizations. So,
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I would like to introduce Mr.
yeah.
Ray Galindo.
So if you would
Oh, I gotta talk in here?
speak into the microphone,
Okay.
because even though here everyone can probably hear you, people who are watching at home.
Oh, they're watching at home.
Here, they
No
won't
pressure.
hear unless you speak into there, any of you who are willing to speak.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and I'm gonna go sit down and listen.
Thank you. So my name is Siobhan Newman. I am the manager of the Transplant Alliance Group at WVU Medicine. So we were invited here, and I wanted to bring a patient, one of our transplant recipients, to speak and provide his story and talk about his journey with kidney disease and to transplant. So this is Ray Galinda.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me come in and talk to y'all. And excuse me for the y'all. I'm from Texas, born and raised, and so I still got some of this accent. My journey started December 2018. I went in for a catheterization, and everything that you just said about diabetes, heart disease, and it was true for me. I did not take care of myself. I went in for a catheterization and I came out, and the last thing I remember from that catheterization was my wife being escorted out, the doctor on top of me, trying to stop the bleeding. I don't know what happened. I woke up, and what woke me up was I was floating above. I have no idea. Everybody was dressed in red and blue. I came to rest and sat down on a bench. And one of my former students said, "I got it, Mr. Glenn. I got it." A little bit too late, but I got it. What he meant by that, I have no idea. I woke up, and my nurse sat there, or was working on me, and said, "We almost lost you. Welcome back." At the time, I found out that I lost 4 pints of blood, and I had a chest catheter in me. No idea why. The doctor came in and said I had to start dialysis, that my kidneys had failed. In part for heart disease, diabetes, and I never took care of myself growing up. I admit that. I put myself in that situation. But since my journey started in January doing dialysis, I learned a lot. And thanks in part to all my doctors at the Transplant Alliance, Dr. Biondi, Dr. Lopez, Dr. Shanri, my coordinator Jesse, Brian, Siobhan, everybody, all my doctors. It was a long journey. And this is a journey that I don't want anybody else to take. What I learned was that the Hispanic community is not educated enough when it comes to kidney disease, diabetes, and heart problems. I want to make it my mission to go out and talk to people. I was on the transplant list, and it was a lot of work. Sometimes I felt like my wife was going to throw me out of the bed because I glowed so much from all the testing. And I am a transplant of 12/12/22. I got 3 phone calls. It was funny because I put up on Facebook, I put a post that said, "All I want for Christmas was a kidney." That was on a Monday. I got called on a Wednesday, and the kidney was not good. Got called on a Saturday, and then I got called on Tuesday, and I was transplanted on Tuesday. So my coordinators said, now I'm a transplant for the rest of my life. I'd like to thank each and every one of all my doctors, my nurses, the office staff, and especially my wife and my kidney donor. I will never forget that. And I want to be able to educate a lot of people on the importance of organ donation. We don't know that. We don't know the importance of it and how critical it is. Nobody in the Hispanic community, because I did talk to a lot of people. born and raised in Texas. They had no idea that one person could live on one kidney. And that's my mission. I want to talk to them and let them know. Excuse me. Sorry. I want to let them know, and everybody in this chamber, how important donations are. Living or passed away, I will carry this man in my body and hopefully will take care of this kidney. Like I said, I have learned to take care of my body. I was overweight, heart disease, and diabetes type 2. I got everything under control, and at least we hope. And thank God, and everybody at the hospital, my dialysis nurses, everybody, for this opportunity. And thank y'all for the opportunity to come talk to y'all and speak on behalf of the National Foundation, Kidney Foundation Fund, the West Virginia Kidney Transplant Alliance. Without them and Dr. Biondi, Dr. Lopez, I don't know where I'd be. Again, thank you very much, and I hope everybody will spread the word about how important kidney donations are, or organ donations in general. Thank you so much for letting me talk.
Thank you so much for coming to speak.
Yes, thank you.
She doesn't want to say anything, but this is his transplant coordinator, Jessie Danforth, and she keeps up with Ray, you know, following up on his visits and his lab results. So she's a big part of his recovery as well. So even though you don't want to say anything, I put you out there.
I don't know how you can follow up after what Ray said, but you know, I am the post coordinator, and my job is amazing in what I do and getting to work with these transplant patients, and you know, just making it aware that March is National Kidney Month is a big thing, and you know, everybody, you know, being an organ donor and knowing more about it is what's going to help all these people in the world. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. One nice thing from city council perspective is one of our former council people was an organ donor, was a kidney donor, I believe. So it's kind of nice to meet patients and people who care about this. So thank you. So wait a minute. Ask them to wait one moment. I think I gave away one more than I was supposed to. I don't think I've done that before. I may have given away one more sheet than I was supposed to. If you get those, it's not like they get an extra. Thank you. I haven't done that before. That's a new one. Good thing to realize your mistakes. So if everyone, there's quite a few, who are here from the Public Defender's Office, that would be Justin Hirschberger, Julio Pescuzzo, Andrew Cook, Brian Church, and Stephanie Nethkin, and Eva Hagen. Anyway, and I don't know if Heather's here, but appreciate all the public defenders who are here. And we're going to come up and read this, and then we're going to hand it off to you. So it is Public Defender Month. And we have a new Public Defender's Office, so it's especially exciting. So whereas the city of Morgantown values every one of its citizens, rich and poor, and whereas many of our citizens cannot afford to hire a lawyer when they have to go to court, And whereas public defender, lawyers, and staff, and appointed counsel in Monongalia County work every day to meet the needs of clients facing loss of liberty and are a critical part of maintaining a fair justice system. And whereas this problem was addressed 60 years ago in the case of Clarence Earl Gideon, 51-year-old man with an 8th grade education whose conviction without a lawyer was ruled unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court. And whereas as a result of the Gideon decision, in March 1963, the Supreme Court unanimously ruled that poor people have a constitutional right to an attorney when faced with a prison sentence. And whereas as a result of the Gideon decision, all states now provide court-appointed counsel to people facing criminal charges and incarceration who cannot afford a lawyer. And whereas since 1863, a century before the Gideon decision, the West Virginia Constitution recognized that criminal defendants are entitled to a lawyer. And whereas the 60th anniversary of the Supreme Court Gideon decision is an opportunity to rededicate ourselves to our core value of equal justice under law. And whereas, now therefore I, Jenny Celine, the mayor of the city of Morgantown, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as Public Defender Month in the city of Morgantown, West Virginia, and urge all citizens to join in the special observance. So I don't know which of you would like to receive it. If you would like to, that would be appropriate.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
And if any of you or you would like to speak for a moment, that would be lovely. And appreciate all your hard work in starting a new office. And people have been getting defense, a publicly sponsored defense, but now there is an actual office. So if you wanted to speak a few words, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Justin Hirschberger. I am the public defender for the 17th Judicial Circuit, Public Defender Corporation. First, I'd like to thank City Council for making this proclamation and for their support. I've been in Morgantown for about a year or so getting this office off the ground, and as public defenders, we don't always get the recognition or respect from, sometimes not even from our own colleagues in the legal profession, but here in Morgantown has been very different for us. We received a lot of support, both from council in getting this proclamation as well as some other things, the county, as well as the local bar and all of the other nonprofits who deal with some of the same clients that we deal with. So I would like to point out that here in Morgantown we do get a lot of cooperation, and I'm very, very thankful for that. I'm also very thankful and like to recognize my team. I would put our new office here in Morgantown against any of the multi-million-dollar firms doing other things in the state. They all could have taken higher paying positions, but are doing what they want to do and what they love to do. And it is not only us. There are appointed counsel throughout the county, many of them here in Morgantown who also share this work with us. And so they should be included as part of this as well. And I do want to point that out and thank them for taking on those cases as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm a little bit out of order, but now we're going to talk about Voter Registration Day. So we have a Voter Registration Day proclamation. I assume we do not have anyone besides our lovely clerk that I can hand this to, which I will. National Voter Registration Day was first observed in 2012. Since then, it has been recognized annually on the 4th Tuesday of September to celebrate democracy and encourage people to participate in the democratic process. And whereas voting is a fundamental freedom that is enshrined in our Constitution, for many it is a right that is accepted without question or concern. For others, it is a right that was gained through generations of struggle and persistent vigilance to ensure that it was not eroded or lost. Whereas Black Americans had to fight for the right to vote. The 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified 151 years ago in 1870, and although it affirmed that Black Americans had the constitutional right to vote, in practice, enormous barriers to voting rights still persisted. Poll taxes, literacy tests, voter intimidation, and other means were used to deliberately deny Black Americans the right to vote, and challenges still remain. And whereas women also had to fight for the right to vote, decades of effort resulted in the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution 100 years ago, affirming that women had the right to vote. And whereas young adults between the ages of 18 and 21 bore the burden of service in the military and other requirements of citizenship before they had the right to vote, when the 26th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified in 1971. And whereas unfortunately barriers to voting remain an issue in our nation. Voter ID requirements, voter roll purges, the closure of polling places, inadequate access for some with disabilities, and attempts to challenge and delegitimize voting by mail, disenfranchisement based on certain criminal records in some states, and other efforts that restrict access to the democratic process must be acknowledged and resolved. Whereas to vote in the upcoming election, a person must be a U.S. citizen, at least 18 years of age, and registered to vote in the city limits of Morgantown. Information about registration and other voting issues can be found at morgantownwv.gov or by calling the City of Morgantown Clerk's Office at 304-284-7434. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jenny Celine, the Mayor of the City of Morgantown, West Virginia, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, April 4th, 2023 as Municipal Voter Registration Day. In the City of Morgantown, I ask that all residents within the city limits of Morgantown make your voting plan. I'll say that one more time. Make your voting plan. If you live in the city limits of Morgantown, this is your time to start thinking about who you want to vote for and make your plan. This means ensuring that you are accurately registered and committed to cast a ballot in upcoming elections. So I would love to come provide this to our clerk. Thank you and your office
Thank you.
for everything you do.
Yes, thank you very much.
Nice job.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Do you want to remind people of when Election Day is?
I can. Yes.
That'd be great.
Election Day is April 25th. As Mayor Celine shared, April 4th is Municipal Voters Registration Day, which is also the last day to register to vote. So we would like to make it easy for you. We will be having a drive-through voters registration, so folks can drive under the farmers market right across from 430 Spruce, our administrative building, and we will be there to assist to help folks to register to vote. So share that with your friends and family. We would love to do that. And it's also very easy to register to vote online. You could go to our website or the Secretary of State's website, and it's very quick and easy, and it will go directly to the county clerk the very next day. So hoping for good numbers, better numbers. As of January of this year, our number for registered voters was, I lost my paper, was 13,487. That's hasn't been that low since 2007. So we're hoping to increase that number and get more folks registered to vote. So share and spread the word. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and also reminding people to change your address or any other information that needs to be changed. So
Yep.
by that date as well would be a huge help, and then you don't have to provisionally vote.
Yes.
Which is not great. So. Now we're to the Woodburn Commission 2023 Annual Report. So if you would introduce yourself and take it away.
Of course. Good evening, Council. My name is John Trumbull. I am the chair of the Woodburn Commission, formerly known as the Woodburn School Redevelopment Commission. And I'm here tonight to present our 2022-2023 annual report. This is something that Chris Haddix, who was our chair up through just recently, has done on a yearly basis. So big shoes to try to fill, but I'll do my best. For anybody not familiar, the purpose of our commission is to help advise and advocate for the property which was purchased from the Board of Education in 2013 and is now owned by the city of Morgantown. We are comprised of myself, Vice Chair Marty Schamberger, who's here with me tonight, Ron Delaney, and Deputy Mayor Danielle Trumbull. Historically, Chris Haddix and Evan Fedorko also were on the commission with us, and they chose not to continue their terms past December of this year. Currently, the complex is home to 6 local organizations who their missions all comprise some sort of service to the community. Empty Pockets Theater, there's some photos from their shows from last year. They're a local theater company. They have children's shows, adult shows. This weekend, they'll be hosting a sketch comedy show, so I hope everybody will check that out. And they've got some other shows coming up through April, June, throughout the summer. Great time. They put on great shows. That's in one of the multi-purpose buildings that's exterior to the main school building. Friends of Deckers Creek, I think most folks are pretty familiar with Friends of Deckers Creek. They're dedicated to improving the Deckers Creek watershed. Some photos of them taking water samples and a small amphibious creature. The Pop Shop is a great program. They've historically been on the second floor of the school building. They're temporarily in the first floor due to some renovations, but they're effectively a school of rock. They just this past weekend put on an awesome show. Kids of all ages learn to play. I saw kids playing multiple instruments and singing and doing all kinds of great stuff. It's great. It's a really, really great program. The Mountaineer Homeschool Hub provides educational and social needs for homeschoolers in our community. They are on the first floor currently in one of the classrooms. My son takes classes there. Those are great classes for homeschoolers. Art, music, history, STEM, and other enrichment type classes. He really loves those. So it's a great program that is getting bigger with every session. Venerable Bean Bakery, they're one of our newer additions. Aaron Benke, who is one of our neighbors in Woodburn, is using the commercial kitchen. He bakes there, and then his vegan creations are sold at a number of local establishments, I believe. And Free Bikes for Kids, I do believe they are the newest. Jeremy Blizzard runs this. I believe it is a branch of a larger organization that takes donations of bikes and parts, fixes them up, and gives them to kids in our community who need two-wheeled transportation, free of charge, no questions asked. The exterior has undergone a number of updates over the last year. The most striking are changes to the landscaping. Many of the sugar maples, which were planted in 1955 as part of the school project, have been removed because they were identified as having been diseased, and some of them lost very large limbs. So most of those are gone. If you go up there, it is a little on the barren side, but the commission has asked for a tree plan to be created to replace those trees. Trees are very important, in Woodburn and in and around the building, so we'd like to see those return, of course. And some of the older shrubs and things have been removed as well that we'll work on this coming year. Recreation, this is Woodburn's, we have Whitmore Park that has some park equipment, but by and large, the Woodburn complex had the largest playground in the neighborhood. All of the equipment that you see here has been removed, and there's a plan in action currently. Emily was very instrumental in that, and Vanessa Reeves, Special Projects Coordinator, is actively seeing through the replacement of all of the playground equipment. So it's all gone, but we'll see that back this year. It'd be awesome. And branding, we are currently working with Drew, with the City Communications Department to rebrand and put in signage and some wayfinding signage for our programs up there to replace some of the older stuff that has either come down or overstayed its welcome. Public art. This is a program that, or a project that was very close to me. I've been working or hoping for something like this for a few years now, and finally last year, Vincent Kitch was able to secure a grant for a mural to be installed on the back of the, this is the back of the gymnasium. It overlooks the playground. We had a great artist who is from Charleston that came in and did all kinds of community outreach, gathered lots of input from neighbors and the surrounding community about what should go into this mural. And we see some of the inspiration down below, a large faucet representing Sterling faucet, maple seeds for those trees, sled riders, there's a large hill, kids in the neighborhood used to, I don't know that they do much anymore, but used to use that hill quite frequently during the winter, and some other wildlife. And so that's all kind of represented in that mural, which actually you can see all the way from down in Saberton. So if you're driving through there and look up at the building, you can actually see it from down there. So it's really great use of the space, and love to see this kind of stuff. Most recently, the commission has kind of tried to readapt to how the building, the complex is being used moving forward. Historically, we've been a larger commission. We requested that you all reduce our numbers to 5 voting members, a more sustainable number of folks going forward to help represent the vision that we have for the property moving forward. And I just want to give, I mentioned this earlier, but Chris and Evan had been on the commission for years, long predating my time on the commission. So I just wanted to recognize them for their service to the community and thank them for all the work that they did. Does anybody have any questions? All right. Thank you very much. Oh, yes.
I have one.
Okay.
So, my point of view, when they're asking the tree board what could be located there as far as trees, I would look for something large and shade producing, because I think it would be super appealing in a landscape that has lost its playground and trees in the same year. So if it's something, even if it grows a little slowly, slower than the maples, but would in the long run sustain shade, I think that would be lovely. So I'm sure there'll be some smaller trees in landscape, but if we had some nice shade producers, that would be my one suggestion.
I couldn't
So,
agree more, Mayor. Many of the trees that were removed were large
make it look
shade trees.
like it's somewhere, because it is.
I agree. Thank you.
Well, and he mentioned a lot of bushes were removed, and those were right near the upper parking area. So the neighborhood has requested some type of bush or shrub to be put back in there. The ones were large and unruly, so needed to come out. But turns out, like, when someone's parked up there at night, as Pop Shop parents frequently are, the headlights go straight down into the neighborhood, into
people's
houses. So I do think we
So
need
they
to
served a
put,
purpose.
it turns out they
besides
served
beauty.
a purpose.
Yep. It's kind of a blank slate, but, I think that we have an opportunity to really put some thought into what goes in there and kind of build from scratch. So
So appreciate your work. Does anyone else have any questions, comments?
What kind of plans do you have for the future of this place?
Well, I'd like to see our programs grow. Right now, everybody's kind of, like I said, there are a lot of renovations going into the upper space or the second floor of the main building. So after that's all kind of done, and I know that Mountaineer Homeschool Hub is looking to expand their program, get a little bit bigger, and see what we might have space for. And honestly, I'd like to see find opportunities to use some of the inside space for more community kind of space. We don't know what that looks like yet, but something that I'd like to work on for sure.
How much space are y'all gonna have once the renovations are done?
It depends on whether our, like I said, with the programs, whether the existing programs might need more space. Before Pop Shop moved downstairs, there were 3 classrooms. But after the renovations are done, we'll have to see whether we're still left with 3 or whether it's a smaller amount.
John, for a nonprofit to be located there, is there criteria on what your organization is to request to be a part of that?
No, not currently. We generally, if somebody is interested in the space, we kind of talk to them about what they might need, see if it's kind of a good fit. Sometimes, not that I really have, the commission doesn't have final say over lease agreements or things like that. We can make recommendations. And I like to see, especially if there's a program that is operating at the same time as another program, make sure that they can kind of operate, together and they're not stepping on each other's toes. But in general, I think that we're pretty flexible when people would like to be located at the complex.
Thanks.
Yep.
Takes a special arrangement for another group to be able to use the same area as the pop shop. You gotta coordinate timing.
Yep, makes sense.
And right now, it's nice mix because you have a couple of organizations that are more evening oriented and other that are more daytime oriented. So that's good for the neighborhood.
That's
That's
right.
good for the building. And like you said, that alleviates some potential for conflict for
Right.
trying to have too many people there at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just very quickly, we have had, I feel, maybe John or Marty can correct me, but we have had a good response from tenants being invited into the meetings and represented there. They have been engaged since we added that to the makeup, so I think that was a good choice.
Yep. I apologize. I did kind of skip over that, but I think that that's been a great, I don't want to say pilot, but something that we've wanted to do for longer. I mean, we have have historically kind of had piecemeal interactions with tenants trying to help them achieve their missions. As an advisory board, we want to know what they're doing, what their needs are, whether they, how we can help them. And we, as Deputy Mayor said, we have had a great response as far as participation in our meetings. So I'd like to see that continue.
That makes good sense.
Yeah.
Work together.
Okay.
In terms of, sorry,
No,
Yeah.
you're good.
Please.
in terms of the Venerable Bean, they seem like kind of the odd man out. So is there consideration being given to, is Aaron looking for other spaces that he might be in? It just seems like maybe a kitchen of that caliber could be used by a lot of nonprofits for feeding programs and things of that nature. So I didn't know if there was special consideration. I know Aaron lives probably like a block away. But
He does, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's special consideration necessarily. The shack was going to go in that space, and that agreement did not end up working out. And so the kitchen space had been kind of renovated and brought up to code. And when that didn't work out, my understanding is that Aaron engaged to use that space, but it's a what's the word I'm looking for?
Facilities use agreement, not a lease.
Right, it's a facilities use agreement, so it's less permanent. So it's a little bit more flexible in that regard. I don't know what his long-term plans are.
Yeah, nothing against Aaron. He has great food, but it just seemed a little out of place with the other stuff going on. That's all.
Right, understood.
Thank you.
I think when they had public engagement meetings at the beginning of, when we first acquired the space, and people came from all over the city and had a number of different roundtable meetings, I think that there was thoughts about the community use that you're talking about, thoughts about being nonprofit in general, but also having consideration for people who live nearby. And I don't think that anyone was actively recruiting a business necessarily, but I think that an incubator for a local business person, hence you're wondering what the future plans are, but I think that having this space be used rather than lie fallow is really important. So whatever all you can do to piece it together. So
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Anybody
Yes.
else? Anything else? Then we have a letter.
All right.
All right. Thank you, and thank you to your other commission members. So, our last item under correspondence is a letter addressed to our city manager, Kim Haas, regarding safety and sanitation in the downtown district. Dear Mr. Hawes and Mayor Celine, it pleases me greatly to have the opportunity to write this letter, an opportunity provided by your leadership and the hardworking professionals at the City of Morgantown. As we have emerged from COVID, we have seen our district, so the downtown district, primarily downtown, plagued with many of the symptoms of poverty and substance abuse. As such, our district suffered consequences. Besides the obvious negative effects on folks suffering from addiction and illness, folks that have invested their lives and fortunes for the betterment of their families and of our community have also been impacted. There have been no winners. We recognize and see the work being done. We see the public works staff doing the unenviable job of picking up refuse and spent needles. We see the Morgantown Police Department encouraging the safety of everyone in the downtown community, including the unsheltered or addicted. We see the ambassadors encouraging a more welcoming atmosphere and code enforcement fostering safety and cleanliness. We see all of you. In summary, thank you for your commitment to solve safety and sanitation concerns. Thank you for the ongoing communication, collaboration, and inclusion. Thank you for the hard work. It is recognized and making an impact. Our downtown and wharf is the heart of our community. Thank you for pouring your heart into it. Mark Downs, Board President. Very nice letter. And now we're on to public hearings. First public hearing is regarding an ordinance amending section 36512 of City Code describing gate and pull ticket violations in parking facilities. So for each of these public hearings, we're just talking about this one item only. If you're here to speak at the public portion and not about that particular item, that will be a few items after this section. So we're opening this one regarding pull ticket violations in parking facilities. So we're opening this public hearing. If there's anyone wishing to speak on this issue, please feel free to come to the podium. I do not see anyone at this point. And now we're going to close that public hearing, and now we're on to an ordinance amending City Code Section 10509, providing for election rooms and booths. So we're going to open this one. Public hearing. If there's anyone wishing to speak on just this issue, please feel free to step forward. We're going to close this one. Next, we're on an ordinance amending the membership requirements for the Urban Landscape Commission. So we're gonna open this public hearing. If there's anyone to speak on just this issue of membership requirements for the Urban Landscape Commission. We're gonna close this one. Now we're on to item D, an ordinance amending fiscal year 2022-2023 annual budget of the city of Morgantown as shown in the revised budget attached here too and made a part of this ordinance as the same applies to the general fund. So this is amending last year's budget. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this issue? All right, so I think I might have missed a gavel in there somewhere, but we're going to close that one, and now we're going to have an ordinance adopting the annual budget of the city of Morgantown for the fiscal year 2023 and 2024. Is there anyone wishing to speak on the upcoming year's budget?
Gotta take her.
All right, nice to see you.
Good evening, John Whitmore. Yeah, this isn't turning. I don't know if that needs to. I know this is
okay.
pointless. You all are going to pass the budget. You have to. Then you can go back and do an amendment later on in June. I get that. What I question, though, is where the justification for any of the spending in this document is coming from. Where is the comp plan mention demolition? How many times does it mention demolition? Let me throw that one out there. I'll give you the answer. Once, in regards to cleaning up debris. So why is the city going to be investing in a large-scale demolition program? Where is the justification? That's in the CIP. There's across-the-board CIP issues that are not identified in the comp plan. There is no justification for you to provide any funding to these, but they're just wants. Now, like I said, I know you got to pass it. I just don't think that's very cool. I don't really agree with it, and it shows pretty bad practice. But that's just my opinion. You all can say what you want behind me. That's fine. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak about next year's budget? We're going to close that one. Now we're on to unfinished business. Consideration of approval of an ordinance adopting the annual budget of the city of Morgantown for the fiscal year 2023-2024. Is there, I guess that we could start with the city manager. Is there anything that you wanted to speak about next year's budget?
Other than the fact that this is the second reading, which is required by law, and the budget has to be passed before the end of March, and so this isn't the last opportunity the council has, but it's certainly getting close to it. As I've stated before, this budget represents a balanced budget. The problem we have in the way that law is written that some of our revenues not realized, and we don't have the final reading and the benefit of the rest of the year to determine the level of revenues we're going to have. And so sometimes and we anticipate that our revenue will be a little bit not inaccurate, but based on incomplete information. So there's an additional budget revision that occurs the first part of the fiscal year in July, first part of August, that will address those kinds of issues. But as of right now, the budget is fully balanced with an estimated contingency fund of about $1 million. I don't know if you want to say any more about it, Mr. Tennant. Would it please council to hear from Mr. Tennant?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I apologize. I couldn't exactly hear what you were saying back there, but the only thing I want to add to the budget is there is a change from the first reading to the second reading due to the timing of the county assessments that we get for property tax. and a couple of state rates. So property taxes have increased from the last reading by $135,000 due to, in part, a very conservative estimate on my part, and then also an increase in our assessed values provided by the county. So from last reading to this reading, revenues up 135,000, which is 0.3% of the total budget. And to balance, we included that in our contingency, bringing our contingency amount up to $1,145,000.
Thank you. I think what the manager was saying reflected the fact that we always are making a budget on incomplete information that then gets completed, and then we need to make adjustments kind of first initially, and then we end up making adjustments throughout the year. And so that, I think that highlights that this is a living document and something
Yes,
that we use every day. It's a practical document, and the information that you just provided us is one more piece of evidence that this is a living document and that it will require some changes. Not usually a lot of changes, but usually some changes, because that's part of an active life of a city. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? We have is there a motion?
Not
Let's
yet.
do a motion.
Mayor, I would move to accept the budget for 23-24.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. And any kind of questions or comments? We might be questioned and commented out on this budget, but if there's anyone that has anything, this is your moment.
I'm pleased to have a balanced budget with a little bit of contingency, so thank you.
I guess I wanted to say one other thing, which is when people talk about the city's budget and talk about the comprehensive plan, which was reflected on by an earlier speaker, and also the fact that along with the comprehensive plan that's updated every 10 years, that we have a city, like a working plan, that we set priorities and decide what directions the city wants to go in, and we kind of work on those annually. And we also have a capital plan and a lot of other plans that feed into this document. So when there isn't a lot of comment, I think sometimes it's because people have had input into all of the projects and ideas that have come before, and some of these items are items that have been waiting for funding, and now we're finally getting to fund them. So anyway, a lot of work goes into this, and I appreciate it. So clerk, if you would please call the roll, unless anyone else has any comments at all.
Yes. Joe Buganim,
Yes.
Bill Koecki,
Yes.
Yixia Vega,
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Trumbull,
Yes.
Dave Harshbarger,
Yes.
Brian Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Celine.
Yes, so it passes unanimously, and we move on to boards and commissions, and I don't think we have, we did.
One.
Did we ask?
Yes.
Okay, if we asked, great.
I would like to nominate Scott Slater to the Fire Board of Appeals.
And I'll second.
Nice. By acclamation?
Yep.
All right. Wonderful. I'm glad you all took care of that. We're a team here, even if we don't always agree, which is fine. The public portion, which shall be subject to rules established by council and adopted by resolution. So you would come to the podium, you would state your name and your address, and watch the lights to see when your time is up. And we don't have anyone written down, but there may be someone who has come in that it's not required that you be on the list.
Good evening.
council and administration. My name is Amy Loomis, and I'm with Main Street Morgantown. I'm the executive director. I just want to thank you for reading the correspondence from our board chair, Mark Downs, regarding safety and sanitation in the downtown district. Our mission is for a vibrant and prosperous downtown district to lead a safe, welcoming, and attractive district and growth and prosperity throughout. We appreciate the opportunity to work closely with the city and collaborate with the city on advancements in safety. We have a safety strategy document and plan that we have adopted in February of this past month, and we appreciate that document is a framework and a guidance that allows us to collaborate with you, to be at your tables and for you to be at our tables. And we truly do appreciate and are grateful for the collaboration, for the focus and the opportunity to hold each other accountable for safety concerns in the downtown district. Since we started working more closely on safety together, we truly appreciate the directed patrol from the police department that was instilled on March 4th. Since then, we have received many positive feedback responses from downtown stakeholders. They see it as beneficial, and they truly appreciate that there's an increased foot presence from the police department as well. There's also been advancements in litter control and litter hotspots, and I know that's because of your 3 city ambassadors and because of your new hire in Public Works. So we every day see a tightening, a coordination between city departments and also a tightening coordination between Main Street Morgantown and the city, and we just see you. We truly appreciate the work. We're here downtown every day trying to make it a better place, and we just appreciate that we can work with you. And downtown is the heart of our community, so you'll be seeing more of us, and we look forward to solving the issues with you.
Thank you. Hello.
I forgot to sign in. My name's Patrick Kirby.
It is not required.
My name's Patrick Kirby. I live at 1 Coben Ridge in Morgantown, and I came here representing the Historic Post Office project just to say thank you and just to share a little bit of an update as we continue to work on the project that's been going on for a while with the collaboration between the Mon Art Center, the Your Community Foundation of North Central West Virginia, and the History Museum for Morgantown and the city, obviously. So we appreciate your guys' continued support across councils, but also within the city staff and all the work that the city staff has been doing and communicating with us. So I think you might have seen we've received a congressionally directed spending for the renovations, which is just a part of it, and we continue to fundraise, but also we've received different support to try to deal with the actual building. But one of the reasons I also want to talk is tonight I am missing the merengue that they're doing on Tuesday night, I believe was one of the activities, and they did salsa dancing on Valentine's Day, which I did actually get to take part in. So there's that and a number of things if you check out for programming for the community as we continue to try to save the historic space and collaborate with our neighbors at both the hotel, the downtown with Main Street, and everybody else. So there's good things happening in downtown Morgantown, just to remind you guys if you didn't notice. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi, I'm Marley Iniguez. I am a city council candidate for the 5th Ward. I live in Jerome Park at 1093 Saberton Avenue. I'm glad that we're celebrating National Voter Registration Day today. I think that's really important because the city of Morgantown is facing a crisis of civic participation. Our most recent city election had less than 8% turnout, and as was mentioned tonight, we have a very low voter registration rate at the moment. But I am glad this is inspiring action, and I hope it continues to inspire foundational infrastructural action. Looking at some cities in neighboring areas, from whoVotesForMayor.org, they did some research through Portland State University, I believe. They looked at city election voter registration rates. So ours was between 7 and 8%. Baltimore's is 15, DC is 20, Akron was 28, Columbus is 30. So these city elections tend to have lower voter turnouts. But that's just impetus for greater action. The city council is our voice, and it is our elected body as folks living in Morgantown. It is the only democratically elected role in the city and at the local level, and provides the strategy and the long-term vision for the community that works with the administration. So if you would like to see your voice heard in that, make sure you vote, make sure you encourage your neighbors to vote. In December, the West Virginia Women Vote Coalition asked that Morgantown City Council pass a law requiring home sellers and landlords to provide voter registration forms to new residents. No action has been taken on this yet. I think it's great that we're talking about providing voter registration forms and outreach through utilities and such. I think that a lot of the folks coming to these meetings are a little bit more politically active. So when we look at the lack of registration, the lack of updated registration, signage at city buildings, this could be akin to regular election signage. Doesn't need to be something permanent or anything like that. You know, different organizations have put out downtown banners in the past to let people know about the election, and I hope that we use this time, this National Voter Registration Day, to really support our goals as a community in helping make sure the greatest number of folks can have their voice heard this election. Thank you.
Thank you. We may have run out of people who are interested in speaking, but we're just going to give one more moment in case somebody else would like to speak. Then we're going to close this public portion. We do not have any special committee reports, and now we are on to the consent agenda. I'm going to read through the items. If before we vote, anyone would like to pull any of those items for discussion, but in general, we are going to read through them, and then we are going to vote on them. They're items that have either come up before and have, with very little comment, been passed through a couple of other meetings, or they are items like fair and festival permits, which are generally kind of more administrative in nature. So if anybody for any reason wants to pull any of these, that is your right, and I'm just going to start reading through them, and then afterwards, if there's anyone that wants to pull one, just let me know. Consideration of approval of a second reading of an ordinance amending section 36512 of the city code describing gate and pull ticket violations in parking facilities. The first reading was 3/7/2023. Item B, consideration of approval of a second reading of an ordinance amending city code section 10509, providing for election rooms and booths. The first reading was 3/7/2023. Consideration of approval of a second reading of an ordinance amending the membership requirements for the Urban Landscape Commission. The first reading was 3/7/2023. Item D is consideration of approval of a second reading of an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2022-2023 annual budget of the City of Morgantown as shown in the revised budget attached hereto and made a part of this ordinance as the same applies to the general fund. Item E, consideration of approval of a fair and festival permit for Drewski Entertainment for Chase Rice Concert on May 20th, 2023. Item F is consideration of approval of a fair and festival permit for Drewski Entertainment for Rival Sons Concert on May 26th, 2023. And item G is consideration of approval of a fair and festival permit for Drewski Entertainment for Marcus King Concert on June 6th, 2023. So I'm going to pause, and if anyone has something they would like to do with this, do it now, and then we will ask for a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. The clerk would call the roll, please.
Yes, Joe Buganum,
Yes.
Bill Kowecki,
Yes.
Ixia Vega,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Trumbull,
Yes.
Dave Harshbarger,
Yes.
Brian Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Celine.
Yes, passes unanimously, and now we're on to new business. Item A is consideration of approval of a bid award for the Norwood Fire Station renovation and addition project, bid call 2023-09. And if the manager would tell us more about this.
Thank you, Mayor. Just generally speaking, this is part of a larger, more comprehensive construction bond, facilities construction bond that council passed earlier last year. And this particular project has to do with renovations to the Norwood Fire Department. What I'd like to do, if it please council, is ask our deputy city manager to give a little bit more detail. She was involved in creating the bids and also opening those bids.
I think we'd appreciate that.
Great. Provided to you earlier today was the letter of recommendation for award of the bid. We received 4 bids out of 8 potential bidders, and opened those on Thursday. They were all pretty close, which is what you want to see in the bid. So there was a base bid, an add alternate 1, and an add alternate 2. That letter that was provided to you essentially goes over what is in the base bid. The biggest part of the base bid is the creation of the individual sleeping quarters and repairs to the bathroom where there was some foundational damage and some plumbing. Out alternate 1, currently the exercise room or area is in actually one of the garage bays, so that creates an add-on to the building that moves that exercise equipment out of what is considered the hot zone, typically where there's some more smoke and carcinogens, and tries to move that away from that area. And add alternate 2, which at this time we're not recommending award to, is a specific decontamination area to be essentially put back in that garage bay. With the bids that we got, the low bid, base bid plus add alternate 1, which is what we are recommending, is in the amount of $1,770,957, and that would be to Lytle Construction. There was, I believe it was only an 8% difference to the next highest bid, between the high and low. So again, that's really good bid amounts. So this was, as city manager mentioned, in the original facilities bond that was taken out for 4 projects. It was only included originally as $400,000 of that bond. In the fall, it was brought to City Council to consider using some of the CDBG annual entitlement and CDBG CV funds as part of that funding strategy. And I provided Council with some additional information about a full funding package that includes some additional CDBG CV from the state and from the city, and then likely a small portion of carryover with some of the funds that Finance Director Tennant mentioned earlier to get to a full funding package to fund that, again, in the amount of about 1.7 million. And I'd be happy to answer questions or after you have some discussion.
To approve? Well, just question.
Yes.
The funding streams are, it's all an appropriate dedication to be used towards the Norwood Fire Station, correct?
Yes, so the CDBG CV funds in particular, which are tied to COVID, some of that, a big push for the COVID money was to help with first responders. And this in particular, by improving the HVAC and separating the sleeping quarters and kind of creating some more of the separated spaces, is dealing with, so people aren't sitting there breathing in other people's germs all night when they're sleeping, to say it probably more loosely. But that was one of the best practices with COVID, to try to keep people, especially your first responders, separated from one another, obviously when they're not actively on a call. And then some of the other activities, like I mentioned, there's a big push now in fire service to remove, I don't want to say hot zones from cold zones, because I know that the one is called hot zones, but I don't remember if they call the other one cold zones. But it's essentially the clean from the dirty. So anything where they might be coming back from a call, where they're storing any of their hoses, their gear, any of their cylinders, anything like that, anything that could have like smoke or carcinogens, that's just really nasty stuff. So even when they clean them, they still can have some of those materials on them. So trying to keep that away from the more living areas. So that's one of the pushes, to try to move the kind of workout area away from all of that stuff. So that's why we've been working with our consultant, our CDBG consultant, to review all of those to ensure that those are all eligible uses of those funds.
Great.
Can you explain ad alternate number 2 and the reasoning behind not moving forward with that one?
Yes, so ad alternate 2, essentially in the garage bay right now, that's being used as a workout area. By moving that opened back up that space. And so at alternate 2, they call it a decontamination area, essentially where if somebody came back from a call, there would be an opportunity to, it's almost like a bathroom on steroids and a laundry room on steroids. So it's an area that allows you to take off your gear, put it into these special washing machines, and then kind of shower off in an area that was different than, where they're showering on just like a daily basis. And one of the reasons why we opted not to go forward with this at this time, first off, funding, but that was a separate enough project that can be built back in later. So that was something that we felt we could go after very specific grant dollars to do that small amount. So we'll still have the design of that, but we can go out to bid separately if awarded grants, or if we could fund that with additional dollars in the future.
Might I also add that alternate 1 has to be done in conjunction. There's a wall. The major renovations are really intimately attached. They're not you can't segregate the two. Alternate 2 can be. It can be an independent standalone project.
Yeah, and we can't do add alternate 2 without doing add alternate 1.
Right. My concern was just like, is this kind of a now or never thing, or could it be done later? Because over $160,000, should we be doing it? Does the North Side Fire Station have a room like this?
Not fully like this, but it is something, one that could become more easily come back and be added on later. But we do have a gear extractor at the north side facility right now, and as we're contemplating what to do with South High Station, that will likely be something that will be incorporated into that as well. So it's just maybe something that as we go through, being able to add that on later. But just trying to be cognizant of where funding is right now for all of our facility projects that we have going on. And my understanding in talking to the fire chief, he is also in agreement that right now the most important is to get that ad alternate one, as long as we could afford it and we did find the funding that we felt was appropriate and could do that without stretching ourselves too thin.
Could you just briefly address some of the COVID funds that didn't work out that are just being transferred over to this project, just so people know?
Yeah, so the city received some entitlement on COVID funds and then had also received some grant funding through the state, through the CDBG COVID funds. They became really limited by the time they actually got around to providing the funding. We are working, we had a project with United Way on rent and utility assistance, and then we have been working with Meals on Wheels to provide some of the feeding for seniors or other people that are requiring Meals on Wheels. And then we also have another program that we are hoping to get kicked off here. We've been meeting regularly with them, but ready to do kind of a food pantry assistance program. But we're not able to essentially have enough of that work or enough of those projects to be able to take up the full amount of funding. So we had previously done some revisions to the city's allocation and then worked with the state to seeking to revise the grant application. Part of the struggle with that is that everything had to be able to be tied back to COVID. And so that was a little tricky, especially with the rent and utility assistance, because you had to say people were in need of those funds because of COVID and not for other reasons. Making additional difficulties on top of this, and one of the reasons why we're trying to make sure we move this project forward is because those monies must be spent by mid-November or else they could go away. So if they're not used for this project or not spent for their assigned projects as of November, then essentially we forfeit those funds. So the state had recommended with some of the projects that we received through the grant program to find a project that could expend those funds more quickly.
So appreciate y'all's work with identifying a project that still could work with COVID funding at this point so that we can take full advantage of the funds that are available and we can complete this project in Norwood. Is there anybody else that had any kind of questions?
So move to approve award of the bid to Lytle Construction for the base and add alternate one. Right?
Nice.
Second?
All right. If there aren't any other comments, then we would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Joe Buganim,
Yes.
Bill Koecki,
Yes.
Ixia Vega,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Trumbull,
Yes.
Dave Harshbarger,
Yes.
Brian Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Celine.
Yes, passes unanimously. So now we are on to, under new business, item B. Consideration of approval of a resolution approving the 2023-2024 budgets for the City of Morgantown's Capital Escrow Fund, Municipal Airport Fund, Municipal Sales and Use Tax Fund, and the Arts and Cultural Funds, including the MET and the HRMP. And so we would first speak to our city manager and then maybe the budget director. I'm not sure.
If it pleases, this is one of those items that I would certainly turn over to our finance director, Mr. Tennant. He was instrumental in preparing this entire document.
Quite a few items here representing a lot of work.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the ordinance was for the general fund and Nicole severance as required by the state. This is pretty much everything else. This was all included in the budget book that was handed out, I believe, almost a month ago now. The only thing I will add is last council meeting on the 7th, I handed out some additional pages, replacement pages for the capital escrow fund. Just a brief explanation on that. The only thing that changed, we did add $13,400 in additional agency funding for Morgantown Area Youth Services Project and Community Coalition for Social Justice. Those are the only two items that has changed since the original book was handed out. So I really don't have anything else to add from the meetings and everything that we've been through. So if there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
So how about we have a motion and then we ask our questions?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And then if there are any questions for budget director? There's a lot in here. We've had it for a long time and we've looked through it and we've asked a lot of questions. So, does anyone have any questions?
No, again, thank you for the opportunity to come and meet and review the documents in person. That was very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think we can call the question unless there's some. Yep, call the question.
Joe Buganum,
Yes.
Bill Kowecki,
Yes?
Ixia Vega,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Trumbull,
Yes.
Dave Harshbarger,
Yes.
Brian Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Celine.
Yes, passes unanimously, and now we're going to look at consideration of approval of a resolution approving the 2023-2028 capital improvement plan, so our 5-year capital improvement plan. And we'll give it over to city manager, and he can decide what he wants to do with it.
We've got the expert here.
All right, if you would please come to the podium.
And I will pretty much give you the same response as the last item. Nothing has changed. The only thing I will say is there is a $600 million grant that's listed in the CIP plan that is not reflected in the capital escrow. We do foresee that being a special revenue fund just to separately account for that and not part of capital escrow. And that is why you do not see those amounts in there. This was a lot of work by my staff and assistant city manager, which I really thank for helping us go through that.
The grant is for?
Oh, the South High Street Fire Station. Renovations or replacement.
Is that an earmark?
Yes.
All right. Why don't we have a motion and then we can have questions?
Move to approve?
Thank you. Second. Thank you. And then if there's any questions about the 5-year capital improvement plan?
I'm not happy with it. I'm never gonna be happy when there's years that show Bow Park is getting 0, because that is what makes people wanna live here. It is a very important, there are lots of needs, and I know that city administration looks at it and says, but you get sales tax now. But when we're talking about bonding the majority of sales tax out for some major projects, we need to remain in the city's capital improvement plan, long-term, not just with, we have 3 pavilions to replace over the next 3 years, and then we don't have to be in the improvement plan anymore. So I'm not thrilled with it.
Page 13 has Bow Park receiving $195,000 next year.
And then in 28, there's 0. It goes,
Oh, okay.
I think we're,
27, 28.
it's kind of like,
I was thinking that there was a request that they hold off on a few things this year, and then.
understood. This year
and
was
then-
supposed to be a low year,
And then,
but then we're back up to, what we're normally expecting, 700,000. 27, it drops down. 28, it's 0. So I would just like to ensure that Bow Park remains a priority, not just for me and you, but for the city as a whole, because I think if you ask a lot of people what they love about Morgantown, our Parks and Recreation are right at the top of their list. As chair of Bow
Understood.
Park, I have put in my.
no, understood. I understand for this year, and I
Yeah.
agree with you that in other years,
I'm
in the
not throwing a
future,
fit about this year.
we would like to, after the next subsequent years, to look at the state of things and consider what the budget is, what the needs are, and make sure that we are fulfilling our obligations to Bow Park.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
Just on the $6 million grant for the South High Street Fire Station, that's a guarantee that we have that, is that correct?
It is my understanding, yes.
And is there a time period in which we have to use that money?
To spend it by sometime in 2031.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully we'll spend it long before that.
Yeah,
I think we can do that.
very good.
Be careful what bank you put in it.
I also just want to remind everyone, I remain displeased with our annual expenditure of $240,000 for the training center. But
So noted.
That's beating a dead horse at this point. I just want to remind people that I don't like it.
Well, perhaps in that spirit, we could ask for regular updates on how that's going as far as having partners and people who are making regular use of the training center that might help backfill some of that amount. I realize that probably won't always backfill the full amount, but that would be very useful to know as we're moving forward with it, just what the plans are and how it's working out. Any other items that anyone would like to speak about? I just appreciated that we have a 5-year capital plan and that we are looking at it and that we can comment about it and that it's, once again, a living document that will move along with the needs of the city and the amounts of money that we bring in. Anything else? We're good? All right. We did do a motion, because I remember you guys did that. So if we would call the roll?
Joe Buganim,
Yes?
Bill Koecki,
Yes.
Ixia Vega,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Trumbull,
Yes.
Dave Harshbarger,
Yes.
Brian Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Celine.
Passes unanimously with one reluctant vote.
One hesitant, but.
But she did it. All right. Consideration of approval of a catering permit for Almost Heaven Bar and Grill to provide beer and wine vending as part of the Ruby Summer Concert Series at the Hazel Ruby McQueen Park. And
Thank you, Mayor. This would authorize the city to provide a letter of support to the ABA to allow the vendor to be able to serve beer and wine as part of that summer festival. And it's our recommendation that we approve that.
I was wondering if this has anything to do with recent DORA legislation, or is this something that we can just do because this is all our venue and our spot?
This type of caterer permit is authorized by the same omnibus alcohol legislation that also adopted the DORAs or outdoor designated areas. It
I know
allows
it's not called DORA anymore,
a
but.
private club to act as a caterer for another venue for up to 15 events during the course of a year.
Private club is acting as a caterer. Cool. All right, so this is recently allowed.
Did we take bids on that, or how did we
decide on that?
Yeah, how did we pick the one?
I'm not familiar with that process.
I believe, I believe what happened was there's, Vincent was approached and agreed and had a conversation. The city will receive 15% of the royalties on that, so there was negotiations in terms of some of the revenues coming back to the city, and that's, I think it was initiated by the vendor themselves and did not go out to bid.
Yes. Emily had her hand raised, you can't see her.
Oh, yes, please. Please provide information.
And one thing, as we're looking at doing some downtown events that had similar type offerings, we were working with some of the folks involved with the Hops on Amman, and so we don't have a whole lot of groups in this community that do that, or they do them in different ways, where many of the distributors have like trailers that you can rent, but you have to purchase all of the alcohol up front, and so that was a little bit more financially restricting in doing that. And so as we were trying to investigate information for that, we looked into also potentially doing the service ourselves, but then you have to make sure that people are being diligent and have the correct know-how. And so as we were investigating for one and looking into our own events, this was something that had come about that way. So there wasn't a full request for vendors at that time. I think it's something that it's kind of piloting that. And I don't know how many other vendors do that here locally, that they also provide all of the service. So it's kind of something new that we are looking at trying to do.
See, that's kind of my issue, is I don't know how many vendors here locally would be interested in doing something like this. And if this just went through, as Attorney Simonton said, with the omnibus alcohol bill, then that's less than 2 weeks old at this point. So essentially, when that got passed, the first person that said, me, you should pick me, we're going with them, and we didn't look into it. And no one else had the opportunity to say that yes, they were interested, or no, they weren't interested. Maybe no one else is interested. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything against this particular business, but this is like brand new, just like Dora is, and we don't even, I don't want to fault and sign a contract with one company when a lot of other businesses may not have even realized that this was an option right now.
Yeah. And I don't know what would specially qualify them to perform this. There are lots of bars and with bartenders that could perform that stuff. I guess the other thing I would be nervous about is we have a lot of local breweries around. This is our sole alcohol provider. And they don't have like distribution rights to the things that they're selling, right? So this is just a service contract? Yes.
It's similar to a catering contract.
Yeah, catering contract, sorry.
Anyone could have other places, and again, there is equipment and staffing involved with it. And so, again, we were looking at other downtown events, and it was proving to be very challenging, and especially because there's the liability and insurance requirements that go along with that. We just, it was something that through investigation of other events and other activities where we were trying to do similar things for just, even just one event, at the time that proved almost impossible to do. Now with the POTAs/DORAs, that'll give a little bit more opportunity there, but I think those still have to be even adjacent. And these catering permits, while similar laws that a person to take them off site. So I don't know fully what discussions were had with other ones, but this was one of the folks that was willing to enter into this pilot program, because it is something that we have not delved into yet, and we have the ability to cancel that if it is not working out.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, this was also considered to be sort of a trial to give us some sort of experience with this kind of activity. And help me here too, our food trucks are not handled in much, or handled in a very similar manner.
Correct. So we allow food truck vendors to essentially contact us. We have a limited number of spots, and so we work with them to get in. And if we got to a point where we had more vendors, we would essentially be selecting the vendors that would come for those specific events and rotate them, as applicable.
But this says a
Sole
sole
alcohol
vendor.
provider. That's what it says, for up to 15 events. It just doesn't read like a pilot program. It sounds like we're signing up for one person to do be the sole alcohol provider for up to 15 events.
15 events, I think, probably for the season.
Again.
Yeah, it's just limited to the calendar year.
I just have an issue with the fact that we're rushing to sign this when most businesses probably don't even know that it was an option that they could negotiate or put in their desire or willingness to participate or be considered. Because if this went through in the same bill as my DORA bill that I worked on with Delegate Williams, that was passed on like the next to last day of the legislature, so it's like 10 days old. I would say most of our businesses have no idea this is an option yet.
Do we think this would be a hard vendor to find to provide this service at the concert series?
Well, we weren't able to find any for the downtown event we were looking to do. And that included all of the downtown bars at that time.
A downtown event that wasn't really set in stone and may or may not happen, and then it didn't happen, so I don't necessarily blame someone for not signing up first thing for something that they had no idea what it was going to look like or be, but this is kind of like a guaranteed, we have these events, we know what the attendance looks like. I would think that more of our businesses might be interested in something guaranteed like this than, hey, we're thinking of having an event. Maybe we can get it together, maybe we can't, which is what happened. And we've kind of passed that event off to Main Street. But I just think that this is jumping the gun a little bit before we say, hey, we're going to be signing a contract for sole alcohol providers at the amphitheater concerts. Who would be interested?
Mayor?
Yes.
I don't think that we're so far along, I mean, there's no contract been signed. I think it sounds to me like council would prefer that this went out to bid and we had people have an opportunity to give feedback. Is that what I think that's what council's saying.
Yes, I think you're
There's
right there.
There's nothing that would preclude us from doing that, would it, Mr. Sumington? That you're aware of?
Pardon?
I do not believe there's anything that would prevent us from doing that.
So what are we suggesting, that this be tabled for later?
I think we don't have to even table it, we can just pass on it.
I think I don't know
Is that-
technically, but I think we just kind of start over. And we'll present another proposal to city council once we've gone through that process.
I would appreciate if, and it's good to hear what the deputy city manager has been telling us in terms of the difficulty. I would very much like to hear what was involved from Vincent, for example, and to give us a little better understanding of what the negotiations are and what needs to be done in order to accomplish something that is going to be successful.
Well, I think if we ask that this be put out to, that there be a request for proposals, and then we ask Vincent to come back with it once we've done that, then that would cover all
Sure.
those things.
Yeah. I want to be clear, I don't have an issue with this particular vendor. I just feel like other vendors maybe didn't have an opportunity.
Sounds great. So are we good to pass on this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Item E, consideration of approval of an updated ARPA action plan. City manager.
Just giving an overview, and you should have all had an opportunity to review this. This is certainly a fluid document, as we all know. In 2021, the American Rescue Action Plan Act was put into law, and the state or the city received $11,243,000 to be spent over a period of 4 to 5 years, depending on which section. We were given authorization to draw down half of that $11 million initially, and so if you'll recall, about a year ago, we presented City Council with a strategy for the expenditure of that first half of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. This includes a plan for continuing the expenditure of the balance of those funds, as well as giving a report of where we are in terms of the expenditures to date in certain areas. I think that you'll find, and as you've reviewed this, I think you'll find that there was an effort to try to make sure that we were streamlining these expenditures to coincide with the strategic plan discussion that we had last fall with City Council. I don't think there's anything in here that would not be in line with the discussion we had last fall. So there was a real concerted effort to maintain the integrity of that plan and to make sure that this plan, the use of these funds, followed that strategic plan. That's an overview now. I think it would be appropriate for any itemized discussion that you might have. We already have a couple of amendments or revisions we're going to have to make in the next few months, just because new information has become available. We've been able to find other funds. Obviously, our intent as administration is to use as many grant funds and other funds as we can to be able to leverage as much of these funds as we can for as many things as we can possibly do in the community. So, and that's what we're finding is that we just made a whole new application of federal dollars, and some of those, if they're approved, will have an impact on this budget. We just felt we needed to at least start discussing, because of the timeline we're on, how we want to utilize these funds, and that's what this is reflected here in this document.
So, why don't we have our motion and then we'll have discussion.
Move to approve?
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. So,
Counselor Butcher had a question.
Yeah, sure. Street outreach coordinator says we have that 100% completed. Have we hired that position?
I think it's 100%.
Means it's allocated
Committed or?
to hire
it's
someone?
Obligated, I'm sorry. So actually, I believe today, that new position, it's now relabeled as a police social worker, just after revisiting some of the terminology and working with the School of Public Health folks on revisiting that. So I think, so it's not necessarily spent, it's more obligated, so that is covering, essentially bringing them on. So that is included in the budget as a revenue source to spend them, but it is out today, so if you know anybody.
Okay.
And it demonstrates our commitment to fill that
I
position.
was just because, if we hadn't hired somebody, I was curious.
Some are obligated,
You were hoping that
some
something
are-
was actually gonna happen for the
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, some are obligated, some are spent.
Yeah, I got you. If that position didn't fundamentally change though, was it just the title?
It did not fundamentally change. It's very similar, but we kind of tweaked a few things from where it was at before in talking with the public health school, looking at some certifications or degrees, things like that. But it's substantially the same, and that's on our way.
We've also tried to make that compatible with what the police department's wanting to do in the downtown, so, because this position is technically gonna fall under the police department and for coordination. And as you know, they've been working on trying to provide a full staffing of the downtown area in terms of law enforcement, but we wanted to be able to provide a component that was separate from law enforcement that would provide that social work component. And so it's continued to evolve, and it'll probably continue to evolve as we figure out what's going to be the best fit for meeting the needs of our clients down there.
When's the library get this money for itself?
I've been working on
I see it here.
with them.
Yes.
I'm just wondering when
In
that's gonna be
preparation
100%.
of If council decides to approve this action plan, we have
Okay,
an agreement that they've already reviewed once.
cool.
Good, because
So-
she was told we were gonna do this 2 weeks ago, and in front of Monarca at their ribbon cutting, the city manager told her it should be ready after the March 7th meeting.
Well, it went out. How's that? You're now passing it
Had
tonight.
it.
It needed to be read and then presented and then voted on.
I have one more. I think one more.
Yeah.
Your AV production improvements, are we holding off on that till you have City Hall done?
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Good?
Down the line.
Yes.
Which is great, $250,000 allocated for downtown trail connection, and I was just wondering if we've identified which connection spots that we're looking at.
Yes, we are looking at improving the connection across the funeral home that's already kind of like a
Baker
pathway
Street.
down.
Deckers.
The dog park to the Spruce Street?
I don't know, it's where Danielle
Up
and
the
I
dirt
talked to
path?
somebody underneath a wall. So up above it.
That wall fell over, by the way. I was just recently there again. Good thing we had him,
The retaining wall?
It was kind of falling over to begin with, but it is a pathway from.
Spruce Street.
It's off of Spruce Street,
Yeah.
the Spruce
Under the
Street Trail
Pleasant Street
Yeah,
Connector.
yeah, it's like a paper road or something.
Yeah.
It's called Deckers Road, actually.
Okay.
What'd you say,
Kind of
Deckers
goes-
Road?
Deckers Street, Deckers Road.
Yeah, that project.
Okay.
And that's great. And then the other question I had, do we, for the sidewalk and pedestrian improvement of $1 million, have we, decided where that's gonna take place? Have we identified the areas, or is this still just we're gonna do it, we haven't identified which sidewalks we're gonna improve or
So I
replace?
think part of this will be the actual, plan to figure out, what the process will be to replace it, and then maybe catching a few. So kind of building off of what, our staff engineer and city engineer came and presented on with all the sidewalks and the PowerPoint presentation, on sidewalks, so.
There have been multiple studies done, as you know,
Mhm.
on sidewalks, and I think what we're wanting to do is make sure we don't discard those, but we need to go through a process of studying those, bringing those together, compiling them, and then coming up with the best alternative in terms of priorities for those sidewalks.
No, I-
And that's all part of these funds.
So getting towards construction,
Mhm.
like almost making the construction documents that you need.
Yep.
Good. I had another question. Your neighborhood revitalization, do you feel like to kind of get moving forward on that, would it be helpful if, say, an organization like Fairmont Morgantown Housing Authority had kind of a shovel-ready project that they could bring to you guys and say, give us the spot and we will build it?
I'll tell you
To
what,
move that forward, or is there
that's
some other
what we-
roadblocks there?
That's what we intended from the beginning, was
Right.
to do something very closely in coordination with them.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it would be very interesting if they said, just as a project, can we work together on it? That just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
These, we're working with the Land Use and Preservation Agency, and there have been discussions with Fairmont Morgantown Housing Authority about whether it's this property, these properties or other properties, and we're actually have re-engaged with them with low-income housing tax credits, the LIHTC projects, and have been trying to work on a couple potential locations for a developer that is considering creating something like that, which, as a point of reference, that was what was used to do some of the Seneca Village next to the Seneca Center. That was a low-income housing tax credit project. But this area in particular under that project is focused with working with the Land Reuse and Preservation Agency to address some of that, and they have an agent on hand that's helping kind of have some of those conversations.
Okay.
So it's rolling.
Okay.
How far are we on the tool trailer?
0.
Oh, well, yes, but like, when will we get moving on that?
When council authorizes that we can do it. Great. And this may go hand in hand with the neighborhood services coordinator role that was approved in the budget. So that person hopefully will we can start posting and interviewing for that position, and then that person can start as early as, July 1, July 5th, I think technically would be the first work day, or could be the first work day, but that would probably be a project that person would be involved with, so.
What other questions or concerns or agreements? I think housing is something that really could help activate our downtown, could help with having enough employees to take jobs that are here and people are looking for workers, would help stabilize for our hospitals, university, federal facilities, and every other employer in town that has a little sign out that they're looking for workers. The more housing we had at every different level, the better. So whatever we can do to look at our housing study, and if we can work on a tax credit project or whatever other projects to get actual housing built, that'd be great. It's a tall order. I'm looking to see, after we have figured out how to fund the Norwood Fire Station, making sure that we have enough money in the sidewalk and pedestrian improvement line so that, maybe we could add a couple $100,000 to that as we move forward to try to get that even more jump-started than the amount that's there. And excited about the free clinic, getting that dealt with one way or another. And working on the physical, mental health. We're working on nonprofits who support causes and populations impacted by COVID. How we work on that. There's just a lot that either will need to be used and funded or moved along to another purpose.
I'm positive that in the future, we're gonna be sitting down again saying, well, these worked, these didn't work, and we have these funds available, and talk about reallocation of some of those funds. That's the next step. Just implementing what we can and what works, and come back and report to council.
I think with the downtown trail connection, we have that connection on Deckers Street, or I need to make sure, street or what other name it is, but that area between the dog park and Spruce Street, there also were some requests and some looking at the area down near the current downtown post office and the guitar building location that goes straight down under the High Street Bridge and straight down to the trail there. There was some requests and a walk looking down that direction as a pretty, from a right-of-way standpoint, I don't know how it stands, but from a physical look at it, it's not a difficult connection, and it would be very direct for people to get to the downtown that way. So if that could be looked at, or at some point, I support the Decker Street. It looks like that makes a lot of sense also, but I think any way that we can get people from the trail up to the area of their choice in the city is really important. So I appreciate that line item. Any other comments?
I'm thrilled to see the library. I'm thrilled to see the HPO because I'm pretty sure we promised them money even before we heard from the library, and everyone's been on hold waiting for 4 to 6 months, so let's do it.
That's why we appreciate anyone and everyone's positive vote on this, so we can keep it moving.
There's some stuff I don't like, but I want to move it.
Good. All right. So, if the clerk would please call the roll.
Joe Buchanan,
Yes.
Bill Koecki,
Yes.
Igsia Vega,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Trumbull,
Yes.
Dave Harshbarger,
Yes.
Brian Butcher,
Yes.
Mayor Celine.
Yes, passes unanimously. And now we're on to reports, and it starts with the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. You should have all received a reminder and further information on a link to the tools program, management program that has been developed by the city. And if you go in there, you'll find there are a lot of projects. I don't have anything additional other than what's been updated in that tool. So if you have any questions about what you read on there, you can enter comments, and I know staff would be very appreciative if you had some specific comments on any of those projects. It would be really beneficial to staff to know where your interests are and where your concerns are. But that's all I have.
Thank you. City clerk, busy time.
Yes, Mayor. We'll start with elections. On March 14th, we held our ballot drawing, which is required by our state code. And we now have how our candidates will be listed on our ballot. That order has already been sent to our election support team, and we received our absentee ballots today. What happens next is our 2 ballot commissioners will come into the office and review every one of them, word for word, before they're sent out to make sure that everything is accurate. So that's a big deal for our ballot commissioners, a lot of reading and verifying. March 29th will be our poll worker training, and we are inviting the public and anyone who would like to attend poll worker training. We're looking at that will begin at 11 a.m. and it'll be at the Public Safety Building in the training room. We will incorporate into that training our diversity training like we did last election, and that will be handled by Angela Cartwright. She's the Director of Diversity Initiatives and Community Engagement. So we had a talk this week, and we plan to make that part of our official poll worker training every election. We had good response last election from that training, and again, we invite everyone. I've already reached out to the communications staff to put a notice out for folks who would like to attend. I look at it this way, open it up, and if someone has never been a poll worker, maybe they would just like to see what it's like, and we'll be able to have some more volunteers next time. We do need more volunteers this time. We are still short one poll worker. Paid volunteers, thank you, yes. And poll workers will receive about $150 for election day and training, so that's a nice pay for doing a good service for our community. So we like to have 15 alternates as poll workers, and we only have one. So I'm asking you all to spread the word. Again, they can be city employees. We do have some city employees who are helping, and we're appreciative of that. And they can reach out to the city clerk's office if there are any questions. There is an application on our website, and that goes immediately to the clerk's office, so we'll reach out to that person once they've applied.
Can I ask a question before
Yes.
you move on?
Mm-hmm.
Does an alternate get paid for the poll worker training?
Yes.
If they are not, so what is that?
Yes, that's $50.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we like to have alternates because you never know from, day to day. You might wake up sick or have something come up, and we always have to reach out to one of our alternates or two, just because.
Do the poll workers need to be city residents?
No, they do
Good.
not. They need to be registered in the county as a registered voter.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes, thank you for those questions. As we said earlier, April 4th is the last day to register to vote, and we will be having our drive-through voter registration. We'll be there to help folks get that done. I'm looking forward to better numbers this year. April 5th, the next day, we will have our public test, and that's held by our election support team. And basically what that is we will bring in one or two of our machines that we will use and ask some volunteers to cast some votes on the absentee ballot or on the machine, and then we will check the tally and make sure that the machines are working appropriately.
When does that happen?
April 5th. April 11th is the last day to register as a write-in. April 12th through the 22nd is early voting. Again, that is at our depot, our historic depot. We will have signage. I know that folks were talking about having signs. We have invested some extra funding on signage this year, on flyers, communications. I have kept lines of communication with our neighborhood coordinating council members and our League of Women Voters as best I can to make sure that we have get the word out and I appreciate being able to do that with those groups. And then April 25th is our election day. I think that's it for the election. On March 11th, the Police Civil Service Commission held their entry-level exam. It was a typical turnout day. We did have 28 folks who had applied. Typically, about half of that that number actually shows up and tests. Out of the 28, 12 folks showed up and took the test. 10 passed out of the 12. 10 passed the written and the agility. And so we're happy about that. And the Police Civil Service Commission has already held one round of interviews, and they will be having their second round tomorrow to get all the interviews taken care of so we can get them moving forward. March 16th, we had 3 of our new firefighters. They came into the office and took their oath. They are Joshua Nypaver, Trevor Piggenpaw, and Travis Smith. So they came in, and I think it was their second or third day on board. And so we were able to do their oath. And I know that it's a busy time for our HR folks trying to get all of these people in as we talk about new jobs, and they've been working hard on that, so we appreciate it. And lastly, I just want to share a little bit about our boards and commissions vacancies. I know that you all see almost every week that we meet. You get a list of how many vacancies we have, but I'm interested to know if we're getting the word out like we would like. There are 25 vacancies now in our boards and commissions, and so I've reached out to the communication director to see if there's any way he can maybe do some stats on our website to see how many clicks we have on our board and commission pages. I know that he was able, our former communications director was able to pull some stats from our website from not necessarily the board and commission section, but another section. I know it takes time, but I think that might be something that I would be interested to know is how frequently are people clicking and viewing on our pages, just to see if we're getting our word out, how we would like for them to get out.
Maybe we need to highlight a few areas or groupings, like a professional grouping of the quasi-judicial type of positions and what they look like and how you qualify for them, or just like a little article or explanation, and then maybe another category, but that category in particular, so that when hearings are held, we have enough people.
Right. Yes, absolutely. That's a great idea. Ryan and I will be doing, and Drew Bailey, our Director of Communications, will be doing another round of orientation for a few of our boards and commissions members who we didn't get to connect with last time. So one other thing, I want to go back to the election to make sure that we have, when we met, the first time I met with the Neighborhood Coordinating Council, we had a discussion about the flyers, and they had a concern that maybe the flyer was not necessarily misleading, but maybe confusing, because we said only the odd numbered wards are being up for and are up for election, and so folks were saying, oh, can you only vote if you live in these certain wards? So I just want to make sure that folks know that every resident within city limits, if they're a registered voter, they can work, or they can vote. And we've tried to make sure that we change that language a little bit on our signs that have gone up, and the new flyer that went out through the MUB invoice. So.
Can I ask one more question
Yeah.
on election stuff since you
Mhm.
went back to it? I did hear that we do have a banner to cross High Street
Yes.
already, right?
Well, we don't have it yet,
Well,
but there's a plan.
But it's,
Yep.
okay.
It's going there. We've worked with Damien, our Director Davis, to do more signs and utilize their new machine, their printer that we haven't been able to utilize since they got it a year or so ago. And yeah, so I think when I was talking to Amy Lewis, I told her that I kind of would like to have that election banner to go up at the beginning of April. I think Monday the 3rd, across High Street. And it's just basically a sign that says when election day is, when early voting is, and there's a QR code for folks to.
A QR code
gotta
on a
love it.
sign that's 30 feet high.
Yep, it's big.
Better slow down.
Yeah, only use it if you're at the stoplight.
Can I make a suggestion about the election?
Yeah.
We have an arts walk on April 15th from 11 to 4. That'll coincide with early voting. Is there any way we could do some outreach, like on the street that day, saying, walk down here and you can vote. If you're a registered voter in the city, you could vote right now.
And they wouldn't have to wear a funny costume or anything. They could just point them in the right direction.
What time is the Arts Walk? Do you know?
11 to 4.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Could we work with the our communications director, Drew, if we could work with him on a tagline or something that has to do with the election that's about how every voter votes every election, or something that we can use for this election that we can use in 2 years for the next election, that we can use in 2 years for the next election, that just gets across that message that everyone who's registered in the city can vote in every election. So people just get that idea now that we have staggered terms and 4-year terms, that everyone can vote. Because it's not everyone can vote, but everyone who's registered can vote.
Right.
But just to get across that idea so we don't have anyone staying home thinking that they can't vote. Just what you said, but just figuring out if there's something that can go in the banner unless
On
the
the banner.
banner's already made up.
No.
But on those signs, but some kind of a tagline that just gets across. We can even put it across the top of our city website for the month of April that just says every registered voter can vote in every city election, so that people get the idea that they're expected to come out and
Yeah.
that they can come out.
Yeah, that's.
We
a
don't
great
want
idea.
anyone to stay home.
Yeah. Sure.
Gathering all these opinions and suggestions. Thank you. Is there anyone else that has any kind of comment for the clerk? Go on to the city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. We have been working on the proposed relocation of First Street. We have a legal description and plat from the city's retained engineering consultant and have prepared a proposed annulment ordinance and dedication of additional easement. This involves essentially a property swap with WVU, which owns the adjoining property on either side of the current designated public right-of-way. So those documents have been sent to WVU Council for review, and once approved by the staff involved in the project, will be presented to council for consideration by ordinance. This is the same process we followed with the Campus Drive relocation, which is now underway. We also are working on a transfer of land to the West Virginia Department of Transportation Division of Highways in connection with its planned West Run Road project. This property sought by DOH is part of the airport property. It actually contains the approach lighting towers, and so requires a release by the Federal Aviation Administration. We have applied for that release and obtained it from the Regional Airports Office, and prepared a deed to go along with the deed of release issued by FAA for DOH, and sent that deed to DOH for its review. We've received comments back and should have a final form of that deed this week, I believe. So that proposed transfer will also be presented to council for adoption by ordinance, as all real estate transfers are. Should be on your next committee of the whole meeting. That is all I have for this evening.
Pardon, is that deed in the form of a deed or in the form of an easement?
It's in the form of a deed. It grants actually 2 permanent non-controlled access easements, state highways that are not interstate highways, basically, as well as a temporary construction easement.
Okay, thank you.
This also requires FAA approval.
Yes, so FAA has approved the release. They make sure that the airport gets fair value and that the money is returned to the airport operating fund. The fair value amount in this case is $15,100. Then both the deed of release and our transfer deed also specify several restrictions on the property to make sure it remains viable for airport use, including noise easements and other restrictions on development that would impact air travel.
Yeah, that was my concern. Is I heard you mention the idea of the light towers, and I'm assuming that there's no difficulty there.
That's right. These are strips of land containing the light towers that are off the airport runway property itself.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Anybody else? Thank you. Councilor Abou-Ganim, would you like to start?
I don't have too much to report because I've been busy. The only 2 things I would say for tonight is Monday we have the tree board meeting, and then after that we have the First Ward neighborhood meeting at 6 o'clock at MTech. Outside of that, I will keep it short and sweet and pass on to Councilor Kowecki.
Lovely. Councilor Kowecki.
Thank you. Not too very much. I'm expecting that South Park Association of Neighbors will be starting their meeting season again. I believe it's the 29th of this month coming up, so you should look for a notice on that. Tomorrow we have the Housing Advisory Commission meeting in the morning. That would be something that's been on pause for a period of time. I'm looking forward to having it start up again and continue. The only other thing I would suggest is that we heard earlier today people talk about the idea of turnout. Unfortunately, that seems to be difficult no matter where you go. I think the turnout for WVU's election of their own student body was 800 people showed up, and that's a group of, 24,000. There's a great deal of apathy, but I think really I think we've demonstrated over the past years the importance of council and good administration in what the city has managed to accomplish. If you just look at past accomplishments, everything from Ruby McQueen to kayaking to roads to a more solid economic base that enabled things to happen at Beau Park and the good things that are occurring around here. That's done because there's a group of people who have come in and dedicated their time for not a great deal of money and managed to bring on very competent people to carry out what needed to be done. I don't think there's anything that you can do that's probably not more impactful to your daily life than vote for good city municipal government. And I'm probably just whistling in the wind at the moment, but I do encourage people to get out and vote and make a selection, and I am grateful for the people who step forth and are willing to take it on. So that concludes my report.
Counselor Vega.
If folks haven't been to, I was going to say Eureka, the new restaurant that's been in the old Wild Hills School, I recommend it. They've expanded to more tables and more food, and I worked there for about 3 hours today, so it was very nice to be in, and I recommend that you all stop by, check out the building, ask any questions that y'all have, and check out the art that's there as well. There is a Red Eye Comedy Festival at 123 Pleasant Street on March 30th through April 1st. If anybody is in need of some laughs that weekend. This Saturday, there's going to be a healthy relationships training at the Morgantown Library from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. That is hosted by the RDVIC. It's open to all ages, so it's never too early to know how to work on some healthy relationships, whether it be platonic or romantic. Ramadan starts tomorrow as well, and I was reminded by a coworker today to be more aware of folks' needs during this time. Folks are going to be fasting, so if anybody has I just lost my train of thought. But
if anyone has a colleague or a friend
be
who's
considerate
celebrating, be considerate
of them. Yes, thank you. On March 29th, I will be joining Sister Cities Commission and some folks at WVU for a luncheon with Ukrainian veterans. We're really excited about them coming. Obviously, it's been a really tough time, so we're happy that they're going to be joining us again. They've been here before. I believe that you've joined them, so I'm excited to be joining them in the next couple days. And to end off my reports, I want to give thanks to the groups and the volunteers that worked really hard this winter to make sure that folks were warm and housed during this time. Again, we've talked about this in the last 2 weeks, that there's been some nasty garbage rumors floating around about many of these volunteers and these agencies. So do your best to get the facts, ask the questions, but I know that it takes a village to do it, so I appreciate everybody who took their time to make sure that folks were safe this winter. And that will conclude my report.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Me? It's everyone's favorite season. It's trash cleanup season.
It is.
Just me? No. Yes, the Woodburn Association of Neighbors had our first trash cleanup of the year last Saturday, and there are several more coming up. So Friends of Deckers Creek is hosting one at the Outdoor Learning Park in Saberton, April 1st, 9 a.m. The city is actually hosting one along with the Riverfront Revitalization Task Force downtown and in the Wharf District on April 13th. I believe that's like a 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. kind of thing. I'm told a graphic will be forthcoming. The Morgantown Litter League will be kicking off our second season on April 15th. Also more information on that to come. And I've been working on a Earth Day cleanup of Don Knotts Boulevard with Special Projects Coordinator Vanessa Reeves. That'll be on April 22nd in the morning. I'm told Public Works will be closing down the street so we can really get there. That is always one of the worst places in town for whatever reason. The Morgantown Fire Department is doing fire training in Woodburn, and it's ongoing. They are utilizing some of the vacant properties, specifically ones behind the old Richwood Grill building. And I'm told that they will be doing this again on Thursday with
theatrical smoke. So if you are in the Woodburn or downtown area and think a house is on fire, it's probably not. The fire department is on it. They are using those buildings for training until the time at which we can get those taken down. As we mentioned a little while ago, the designated outdoor refreshment area finally passed the legislature. Took me and Delegate Williams 2 sessions last year and this year, but it is through. It has changed a little. It got more strict, and then it got less strict, and it's kind of gone back and forth. So I'm excited to work with Delegate Williams and some city administration to see what that looks like for Morgantown. We are not turning High Street into a kegger. As I have been saying all along, we now have the ability to do this. We can control it, and we have no obligation. So let's see what this looks like and what makes sense for Morgantown now. I think the only other thing I wanted to address, and Amy Loomis was here a little while earlier and discussed the Main Street safety strategy. I've alluded to this multiple times, but it was recently finally approved, and it is now actually available for public consumption on the website. So if you go to the website of the Morgantown Area Partnership, under their Main Street heading, you can get a link to the safety strategy. And again, it goes from things to, public safety, health and sanitation, and property safety and security. So it's a well thought out document. Many different committees with Main Street worked on this, and some Main Street leadership was in close coordination with the city. So I think this is a good document, and I think that there's a lot of actionable items here that will lead to some downtown improvements. So I do encourage anyone in the city who is interested to go to the Morgantown Area Partnership website under the Main Street Morgantown tab and look at that document. I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Hirschberger.
Thank you. I just want to mention one event that the Mon River Trail Conservancy will be hosting on April 22nd from noon to 5, which is also the last day of early voting. And it's on the rail trail from basically the Deckers Creek Bridge down to the Marriott waterfront. And there'll be a number of vendors selling arts, food trucks. There'll be kid activities, and so it's a really family-oriented day that in the past has been a lot of fun. So again, noon to 5, April 22nd. Some of the proceeds benefit the rail trail, MRTC, and as we were talking earlier, it being the last day of early voting might be an opportunity. You know, we've had hundreds and hundreds of people down there in past years on the trail for this event, and so.
Some signs.
I'll be there the full time doing things. I'll be making some announcements, so I could even help promote that in some way. So, and then just a question really for maybe city manager, assistant city manager. The digital sign down there I know is broken, but we just have heard indefinitely. And so I'm sure that's not the case. So if you know anything about when the sign will be operational again or a plan.
When is a great question, and so yes, we, although grant funds, those signs were very expensive, and after they got installed, I think one didn't work, and the other one, the like cooling fan essentially was running at like super high speed constantly, and so we essentially said this product is defective, and you either need to fix it or replace it, and so they have. I guess taken it back and are trying to see what's going on with it.
Gotcha.
And so, like many pieces of equipment, we're not entirely sure what that process looks like to either get it fixed or get it replaced. So, not indefinitely, but time to be determined as to when it will come back.
Gotcha. I mean, that's a tough environment for a digital sign, so I don't know. I don't know what you put there to, you know, take the weather and the potential abuse.
They say it should work with no problem, but
Very good.
Yeah.
Understand. Well, thank you.
Counselor Butcher.
Legislative session ended since last time we met. I don't think it was probably a pretty difficult session. I was glad to see that they didn't come after cities like we thought they might in some ways. Really, the biggest highlights for me at least were HB 3042, the RFRA Act, HB 2007, which was the ban on gender affirming care act, and of course the sweeping, ridiculous income tax cut. But it was nice to see some good things going through the legislative session. DORA, the ban on child marriage, even though that got unnecessarily watered down. And I had talked about it before, but we did get our social worker bill passed. The only bill I've ever wrote. And that just basically allows social workers to have more time to get their provisional social work license. And it passed the second bill to last. So I thought it was going to go through at like 11 o'clock at night. After all this like high drama in there, and then they just kind of passed it and it was gone. But and then I could finally go to sleep. So, but yeah, I think I really wanted to thank the Mon County delegation for helping get that bill through. It's a very simple bill. I mean, it seemed like it was easy to go through. And Kayla Young too. She was instrumental in making sure that bill got passed, both in the House and then she saw it through to the Senate, made sure it got passed, and was texting me about it all the time. So I appreciate our entire Mon County delegation and Kayla Young for helping on that and being good voices in the legislature. As far as events and stuff, I guess the only thing I really have to talk about is this Thursday. I'm spending a lot of that time meeting with various groups about housing. So Thursday morning, I'm going to meet with the director of behavioral medicine at WVU to discuss, one, what their concerns are in terms of patients that they have and what the city could be doing to help behavioral medicine, if anything, and then or make their job less hard, and also to discuss development of medical respite or psychiatric respite for individuals who aren't necessarily ready to be committed, but are definitely not in the state of mind to be houseless and out on the street. So that's the other thing we will be discussing. After that, I will be meeting with Director of Bartlett House, Carrie DeMasi, Executive Director of Health Right, Laura Jones, a representative of the Coalition to End Homelessness. We're not sure who's going to be there. Rachel left recently, Rachel Cohen, and Becky Rod, just to have a strategic planning meeting about what we're doing moving forward, what all of our plans are, and how we can work in coordination. And I think hopefully that'll be the first of a bunch of meetings that we can kind of try to work together better. And then after that, I'll be meeting with FMHA, which is one of the reasons why I was asking about shovel-ready projects. FMHA with Crystal, Ron Delaney, and Brian McAllister. Ron and Brian, more specifically Ron, had reached out to me just asking if ways that he could be more proactive, and the Morgantown could be better represented with FMHA. So that is also like an invitation to city administration to like let me know what things you guys need from FMHA and what you want me to say there. and how I can represent the city well there. But yeah, that'll be it for me. Thank you.
I have a question for them. I talked to Brian McAllister, and we were talking about how we can get the housing building and also renovating portion of that entity going again.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, yeah, I think that's the main thrust.
Do they need to hire another person?
Yeah.
Is it take a different program? What is it that would get that going?
Yeah.
That's my question.
I think that's the main thrust of this is like identifying what barriers they have and why that's not happening.
Yeah.
And what we can do to
And sometimes
kick
it's
'em
just
in
an
the pants if we
organization doesn't
can.
have a particular expertise unless they hire on someone else.
Or there's
Or
just
join
something
with
that we're
another
not-
program.
Yeah, or something we're not seeing that like makes it harder for them. But
Well,
that's
it's
the point.
expensive,
Yeah.
but it's necessary. So what we can do to make it work.
Okay.
Let's see. So I happened to be in Connie and Frank when one of the patrol officers came in to check in with business owners. And so the officer came in and started asking some appropriate questions of the business owner and jotting down the answers. And they had a really nice conversation, including issues that the business owner was concerned about. And looked like it all got written down. And then the patrol officer left. So the one little slice of life that I saw, besides just in general seeing more officers downtown, it looked like that idea of having officers at the end of their shift make a round around the downtown and check in with a business owner looked like it was working very nicely. I have noticed increased cleanliness downtown through the work of Public Works and ambassadors and code and everybody just working together. Just appreciate looking at that and the dedicated work that goes into that. Over the weekend and into the beginning of next week, the deputy mayor and I will be attending the National League of Cities meeting in Washington, D.C. And in November, there'll be another meeting. And if there are council people who would like to attend, please let the clerk or myself know so that we can make sure that anyone who wants to attend these kinds of meetings can attend. They're very interesting. I particularly like the meetings that are in Washington, D.C. because they're closer by and you get to meet directly with our representatives in D.C., our Congress people in particular at this point, and just and also meet with parts of national government that we choose, and also work with our local West Virginia branch, and kind of represent West Virginia and the activity and the effort that goes on here, and what people can do for us and what plans and earmarks we have asked for, and just generally having conversations. And I guess I just really appreciate the work of everyone here and the work of our city government and the progress that we're making, and appreciate that when people don't like how something is done, that they speak up, and that our government's responsive. So just appreciate everyone all the way along, and I'd love to have somebody read us into executive session.
Pursuant to West Virginia State Code Section 6-9A-429 to discuss acquisition or development of real estate in the 1st and 5th wards.
Second, thank you. And all in favor? Yeah. All right. That's fine. Here we go.
Haven't had one in a while.